Welcome to Jazz Therapy, where we explore the intersectionality of jazz, the psyche and psychoanalytic thought, spirituality, and consciousness. I'm your host, Jessie Shapiro. Welcome, everyone, to Jazz Therapy. Today, we are so honored to have back as our guest, our resident mystic, Rigdzin, to share more knowledge and teachings and music with us today. And I'm so delighted. Rigdzin, thank you so much for being with us here at Jazz Therapy.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, today we are in for a special treat because Rigdzin is going to talk to us about some of the teachings of Dzogchen and myriad other things. And also we're going to get to do a meditation with Rigdzin, and he is going to play us some live music. So this is a real treat, just to give everybody a little outline of what to expect for the day. So just as we start, I wonder, Rigdzin, if you could tell us a little bit about Dzogchen and the Buddhist concepts that you are going to be talking to us about today and helping us as Westerners understand and apply these to our lives.
Sure thing. Yes. So when the Buddha first came around, the initial teachings were categorized into Theravada, and he talked about emptiness, shunyata, emptiness of self. And then a few hundred years later, when Mahayana Buddhism came around, they took that and also talked about emptiness of phenomena. So emptiness of self and emptiness of phenomena. And a lot of teachers have talked about the illusory nature of phenomena, of appearances of the world, of everything. And it becomes kind of a philosophy that, some like and some dislike. And I'm trying to stay away from philosophy here because it's not actually about philosophy. This is about the direct experience. So the mystical state, and then integrating that into everyday, ordinary consciousness. So here we are. Dzogchen came about in Vajrayana Buddhism, which was the Tantric Buddhism, the third vehicle. And this is the vehicle in which the rainbow body started occurring. When lamas or Tibetan Buddhists would pass away, often now in the past century, within 7 days, if they attain rainbow body, their bodies completely disappear or grow smaller. There was one teacher a few decades ago, and his body shrank to about 2 feet from top to bottom. And there have been a few others who completely disappeared, and just fingernails, hair, toenails left, and that's it. So more than the phenomena of this points to a deep embodied insight of knowing the emptiness of all things. So we're not talking about an emptiness, just pure emptiness. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the emptiness of form. We're talking about what you see is empty. What you think you see is actually empty. What you think you hear is actually empty. So the direct experience of this, the direct embodiment, deeply embodied, can lead to rainbow body. So to start out with Dzogchen, we have the ground, the path, and the fruition. In the ground, which is divided into 3 parts, we have primordial purity. We have this primordial vast awareness, this primordial empty, pure awareness, pure mind. And from this vantage point, from this point of view, there is nothing else. There is only itself. So the second aspect is spontaneous presence. So obviously, looking around, we can see objects, we see phenomena, we see appearances, we hear, we taste, we smell, we touch. And so these are that dynamic energy that arises from this emptiness, this primordial purity, this pure awareness. And yet, if you are coming from primordial purity, nothing exists. So that's kind of the oxymoron. Nothing existing, and yet the magical display of everything that is. So knowing this deeply in one's body, not just thoughts, is what can lead to rainbow body. And then the third aspect of this is great compassion. When one is deeply sunk into this, one's motivation for everything becomes compassion. The great compassion that looks upon those in suffering and says, okay, I commit myself to attaining full enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. That becomes the motivation, the bodhicitta. So then that's the ground. We move into the path. The view is often where a teacher is pointing out instructions. And I'll do that in a little bit here. And I sat with Adyashanti for 7 years and then began to sit. And so in sitting, that's the meditation. So the view, the meditation, and then in the action, the activity, you are sustaining what was seen in the view, what was pointed out. So first it's pointed out and you have that direct experience. And then in meditation, you stabilize in that experience and realize that is all there is, only awareness. And then throughout one's activity, you realize that that too is all just awareness. So then we move into fruition, and we have the 5 wisdoms. The wisdom of Dharmadhatu is the wisdom of the truth realm, which is only pure awareness. There is only awareness. This is like in mystic Christianity. There is only God. There is nothing but God. There is nothing outside of God because God is all there is. The second wisdom, discriminating. Yes.
Can I ask a question about, you sit in meditation and experience sort of that, I've had little tastes of it, like the deep peace, the deep calm, and that's the view, and then it has to sort of stabilize. But there's something that you just said about the pure awareness that also feels, is that similar to the view as well?
Yes. There's different perspectives and different teachers teach it differently, even within Tibetan Buddhism. But in my experience, the view was seeing pure, empty, clear cognizance in my mind's eye, seeing an ocean of it, and then having it flood in through the top of my head. And also recognizing that what I am is just this awareness, beyond, before the I. So that sense of self, that sense of I, is actually what you might say is an object of awareness. But in the highest realm, there is no object, right? So it's self-knowing awareness, awareness knowing itself. So we have the view recognizes that pure awareness. And then by the time we get into fruition, you can look all around you and see only awareness. And so the second wisdom, the discriminating wisdom, most of us fall into duality. We reify objects. We see everything as real. And upon seeing self as real, other is real, everything is real, the poisons arise, the ego arises. You might call it the 7 sins, whatever tradition you're coming from. Third wisdom is mirror wisdom. You look into a mirror, can you pick up the object you see in the mirror? No. Part of the mirror, it is the mirror. So the mirror is that awareness. Phenomena are what we see in that awareness, and it's actually one, just like in a mirror. Fourth, wisdom of equality. From the vantage point of pure awareness, all experience is equal. So rejection, grasping, all that has been done away with at this point. And the fifth wisdom, all accomplishing. everything is accomplished. There's been tales of enlightened ones that all of their intentions became manifested. And there's also the simple act of, okay, I'm a guitarist. I've really looked up to Steve Vai, one of my favorite guitarists, and at times felt a little envy. And until I realized, oh, I don't need to be envious because Steve Vai already exists in this world. I don't need to copy Steve Vai. So all accomplishing what we are envious of actually already exists. Letting go of the I, there it is. Everything's already perfect.
That is a very advanced sort of way to work, and a beautiful way to work with yourself around noticing these feelings of envy. And then can you say that again? Sort of like you said, you didn't need to feel envious because
the deeper that me is seen through, everything already is. So if there is a me that desires or is envious of the way something in the world is, well, the deeper that I is erased or me is erased, that thing that was desired already exists. So what need is there for an I to make that happen here? It doesn't need to happen here because it already happened there. Words can get a little confusing here, but simply saying that everything is already great perfection.
I've heard spiritual teachers say that. And then, so help me hold that in juxtaposition with what we see in terms of our world and all of the tumultuous changes that are happening right now. How do we hold that spiritual tenet of everything is perfect with what we see unfolding today?
Yeah, wisdom of equality. Every experience is equal. So this is very deep, deep enlightenment, a liberated one. And still aspiring here, I acknowledge that. However, in the aspiration, okay, so here's something that Rigdzin likes, here's something that Rigdzin dislikes. Well, instead of running after this and running away from that, there can simply be a feeling. There can be being present with the like and dislike. There can be presence with the sensations of like and dislike. So underneath the story of like and dislike, we have experience. Experience or sensation itself is presence, a quality of awareness. And also acknowledging that action is part of it all as well. So if one's path is to be an activist, if one's path is to be a bodhisattva, that's part of awareness. That is awareness also.
You are just blowing my mind. There's so many things I wanted to ask and follow up on in terms of, so like the preferences for likes and dislikes. I read that Yogananda, the saint, he came to the United States, and I guess he was at a dinner once, and they were serving Roquefort cheese, and he had never had this before. And he said that he started to feel like he wanted to gag when he first smelled it. However, he told his mind sort of to calm down, and that he would eat the cheese and that he would enjoy it. And he was actually able to do it. And I could see that like he was doing this so he wouldn't be rude to the guests. And I was just blown away that he could have such control over sort of his mind. And he also went on to say in recounting of this story that preferences, like you were sort of saying, they're like conditioned and they don't really mean that much. That they're just sort of there. And the way that he described working with that, like his not wanting to eat the cheese, but he got himself to do it. I was stunned.
He'd had a lot of practice by that point.
Yeah.
And great teachers, amazing teachers as well. Yeah, beautiful story.
For all of us just in the West, how do we start to develop a deeper level of just this presence, this knowing, this awareness that you're describing?
Okay, so this segues into the view. We're going to move through view, meditation, and action. So the view is the pointing out. So first of all, you can notice your own awareness. Or you might notice that there is awareness of things. There's awareness of what you see. There's awareness of what you taste, what you can touch, what you hear, what you smell. But there is just awareness, and there can be awareness of awareness. This is that self-knowing awareness. What is it that is aware of experience? I'm talking about all experience, sight, sounds, touch, taste, thoughts, emotions. Who sees? Who is aware of emotions and sensations? Who is aware of your own experience? Ramana Maharshi was always teaching self-inquiry. Who am I? Okay, what is this I? Well, what is aware of I? Keep going backwards in a sense, right? What is aware of this experience of I? Well, there's awareness. Awareness is aware of objects, and awareness is aware of awareness. Right? So this is the pointing out, to just gain this experience of awareness, of awareness of awareness.
Just being able to step back and observe, and then have that kind of as a gentle inquiry in the back of our minds, of our psyches.
Mm-hmm. Every time we freak out, well, there's awareness of freak out. Every time we're in pain, whether emotional or physical, there's awareness of that. And I loved how my teachers would describe it. That awareness was never born. That awareness can never die. It's not harmed. So yes, the emotions can be in pain, but awareness of the emotions, the awareness itself can never be harmed. It can never be touched. So to stabilize as awareness and not the content of awareness, that's this first step.
And that's a major task in and of itself, just to stabilize his awareness.
It can be a major task if the magnetism of objects is strong within you. Your passion is strong. If your hate is strong, then yes, it can be difficult to let go of identification with these stories, with this self, the self that desires, the self that hates, the self that's aggressive, the self that feels anything. But yet something is aware of this self. So that's the key in all of this. The pointing out instructions are pointing this that's aware of everything, including the self. Just rest. What is there to do? And the next step is meditation. So if you're ready, or if you have more questions.
I feel like this is going to be one of these chats and episodes where I need to go back and listen to it a couple times. And I know each time that I do, I will hear another insight. I will hear something pop out at me. This seems like a perfect segue for meditation, I think.
Great. So we can close our eyes at first. Comfortable, seated posture. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Take another one. Let it out. And now, there's nothing to do. The key is just to sit here. And whatever is happening, it's okay. Whatever you experience is okay. Whatever thoughts are coming, they're simply coming. Whatever feelings, sensations, whatever you hear, feel, it's all just present. You don't need to do anything. Nothing to do. Nothing more to become. Nothing more to purify. Nothing more to transform. This is the great perfection. Because all that transforming, purifying, right now, you don't need it anymore. In this moment, everything is okay. Even the not okay, those experiences and feelings of not okay. Complete permission to be. Opening your eyes, but staying in this. Gazing at a spot about a yard or so on the ground in front of you. The world is here. Whatever you see is part of this. Nothing to do. Nothing more to change. This is it.
Thank you. I did have one question that came to me before we go to the music part. It actually came up during the meditation, and I was like, At first, I was like, don't think about that right now. You're supposed to be meditating. And then I was like, hey, it's okay. It's there. Let it come up, and then you can still just come back to awareness. Um,
That's why the instructions say don't meditate. You're not supposed to be meditating in this meditation.
that's the paradox.
You're just sitting, and whatever arises, arises. And the first time that I started to really spend time with this was in Yosemite. Every other day, I would do this all day long. Or it would do me, however you want to say it. Until one day there was this sensation of identification just dropping away. Recognition of what I am, this pure, spacious awareness.
And that's so beautiful. And it's also something that just came. I mean, it came. I don't want to say it just came. It was obviously a result of devotion and however many thousands of lives you had before this one, and all the work that went up to that moment too. That knowing. I think one thing I was wondering about is, as we're in the process of, and I say we meaning regular folks like me, like, a Westerner, a householder who has, a world, like a job, just a regular person engaged in life, I shall say, as we're learning to really understand that we are, and not just understand it, but be more abiding like you can in awareness. How do we straddle that with also needing to use our egos just for like our functioning in our life, and also some of like the psychological tensions that go along in terms of it inside of us, or in our psyche, knowing that ultimately it has to be transcended, but yet we still have all of these, like Carl Jung said, like just tensions, shadows, we're trying to work to integrate and become more whole, while also knowing it's not the entirety of who we are. Does that make sense? Just if you could comment on these concepts.
So transcended, that doesn't feel quite accurate.
Okay.
It's not transcended, it's getting to the essence of everything, which is awareness. And then from there, getting everything back into this. Actually, there doesn't have to be any integration. You're not needing to integrate. You're not needing to do anything, because everything is already awareness. So really, it's for the insight to deepen within one's nervous system. So in activity, householder, after having the view, the understanding of awareness, and then this meditation, and then coming back to activity and ego, well, activity and ego are this luminosity of awareness. Activity and ego are the awake quality of awareness. They are presence. Looking at a tree, looking at oneself, looking at one's thoughts, looking at another person, looking at your cat, your house, whatever it is. This is all experience. Experience is luminosity of awareness. So as I go into playing some guitar here, even the playing, even the sense of doing it, well, this is really just part of the experience. And the experience is awareness. So awareness knowing itself, presence meeting itself. Not duality, not two, but one, non-duality. So ego itself, what is ego? Okay, so we were looking at ego as reifying, as solidifying everything, seeing, believing everything is reality and real and solid within one's nervous system. So simply reframing for yourself, this is presence. So presence meets presence. And in that, these poisons or ego spontaneously liberate into the wisdoms. That does seem more gradual, yes. Although, of course, it already is, but for the insight to deepen, that does appear to be gradual. I experience it as gradual. Wonderful. Woohoo! So this is what. First, I want to just do a regular. Well, actually, let's take a brief break, and then when I have my guitar in my hands, and we can continue this question. That sounds good. So we're just going to do a minor scale. Like 99% of what you hear on the radio are diatonic scales, major, minor, sometimes mixolydian, but it's all diatonic scale. So we have the minor scale. What if I... Uh-oh, that a wrong note? Well, let's try it. What if I do that across the board? What if I do another wrong note? So the first note was actually part of the harmonic scale, which they use in classical music. The second note is in what's called double harmonic, or the gypsy scale. So these are all notes that are usually not included when we listen to music. So we have a very narrow scope of what we listen to. So jazz, wonderful, because it includes all kinds of notes that we usually don't hear, we usually don't listen to. And so same thing here for spirituality, for expansion of consciousness, you might say. You're growing into this acceptance, this all embrace, right, of everything. Well, we have so many different notes, we have 12 notes in a key. We have all these amazing notes that we hardly ever use. So why not use them? So that's been my exploration. Like, I love, this has been my passion to discover how to bring other notes into music. So I'll start out. If anybody's familiar with the 2-5-1, that's basic 2-5-1, but I'm going to add things that I discovered on my own. So I'm self-taught. Just want to put that out there. I just started a few years ago in the middle of pandemic, January 21. So.
I am just absolutely positively floored. I think it's only possible to play like this if you've only been playing for a few years, if you meditate like Rigdzin does, because that was just so magical. There's got to be something in the meditation that just gives you some extra good sound in there. That's all I can say. I think there really is something there. Herbie Hancock, who I learned interviewing a recent guest, was Buddhist. He practiced Nichiren Buddhism, and he gave a series of lectures at Harvard about how Buddhism has really inspired his life, his career in so many areas. So I do think there's something about being deeply connected with Source. And the music that you just played with us and shared with us, I was thinking this song made me feel like I was in a beautiful, cozy cabin, like on a rainy afternoon, just kind of reflecting, meditating in reverie. I wonder if you could just tell us about this song, how it came to you, playing it, using all of the notes.
It's kind of hard. I mean, it's what I play anyways. When I'm playing on my own, I just kind of fall into some of these patterns, some of these tricks that I've learned on my own. And, the first one was 251, and then I moved through a scale called the dominant Lydian, and then whole tone, and then augmented scale, and then diminished scale, and then to it was actually a diminished seventh arpeggio that I was using as a scale into the last scale, which was dominant pentatonic, which McCoy Tyner used a lot in his piano. And then moving to 1-6, what is it called? I really forgot. 1-6-2-5, which is also a jazz chord pattern. So these are all things that I study, but it's also just kind of a feeling too. So like the feeling of it is, it's sweet, it's beautiful, it's resonant, it's dissonant, it's the entire journey, it's all of it. I'm using all these different notes and notes that people ordinarily don't listen to, like whole tone, it's not a typical kind of music pattern that people ordinarily listen to.
It's so soulful,
right?
though. Like, it adds so much to the music to hear it, like, took it in a different direction.
Right. Like, I'll just jam in just diminished, for like 20 minutes sometimes. Who jams in diminished? I've never heard of it, but I love to just jam in some of these scales, do my own improv within diminished or do my own improv within whole tone, so it's learning to find the soulfulness, in whatever sounds, whatever notes that are coming through that I happen to want to use in the moment. So, yeah.
I love that. And then also not grasping or rejecting, right? Since we learned that today, whatever sound comes up next.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right.
I also...
and to learn to...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the great perfection. We were talking about the great perfection earlier. So the great perfection of this musical journey, of this musical statement as well. An artist expresses, from their heart, from their soul, from their being. And so learning to find that soulfulness in these kinds of notes, I feel like an artist.
Well, you are. I also really resonated with what you said in terms of, wanting to play music on all of these different scales that a lot of popular music does not cover. And yet in jazz, there's sort of permission to kind of use everything. And that being a metaphor again for all of the different emotions that we can feel, experiences that we can have, some of which I obviously a lot of times do want to grasp or push away. And just the idea that they're all parts of us for us to learn from and integrate within ourselves, but then also let go, because we are, like you're saying, pure awareness, but we can't reject or cling on to whatever is coming in our path. That I do know for sure, Rigdzin. I do know as someone that has a tendency to grasp on to want control a lot. So musically, it really makes sense.
And you were talking earlier about the meditation being related to music. And I've been experiencing a lot of energy and presence coming in through the top of my head, landing in my brain, landing in my spine, my nervous system since 2009. So here we are, 2025. And I actually recently read that minus the Kundalini and the energy and the presence, I read that music is one of the most stimulating things you can do for your nervous system. It actually stimulates more of your nervous system than many other art forms. There's the timing, there's the notes, there's learning to express it on an instrument. All the organizations or moving outside of the boxes that you have especially in jazz. So you have all of that. So now combined with this energy and presence that I experience in the nervous system, it does seem to kind of all work together. The luminosity experiences the luminosity of awareness. All these notes, all the ways that they're reflected in this nervous system. It's the luminosity of this awareness.
I love that. And it's another layer of why jazz is so deeply therapeutic. Not only does it really nourish our soul, but actually has a physiological effect, music, on our nervous system. Well, can we hear another piece from you, whatever it is that you want to share in the spirit of improvisation and letting what needs to arise without grasping or clinging? That's for me, everybody.
Yeah.
Not for you. Because I know you guys don't struggle with that. Well, that was just marvelous. I had this vision of you being almost out on like a ray or a rainbow or something, like in the galaxy, like playing this solo for the cosmos, like just so joyful. That was straight up out of like a solo that we would hear on just a record. So are you available for gigs now after this too, is the question.
Give me another few years. That was actually just the normal blues scale pretty much, and then throwing in some chromatic stuff, and but using it in a different way than blues is usually used. But it's pretty much the same notes.
Well, I love that too, because of course the blues has deep roots in its influence on jazz, and we hear that come through in so many different pieces. And it's also in our collective unconscious in terms of the layers of music, that have informed and continue to inform your musical expression, and then what we know is different. What does it feel like to play music, like to play your guitar? Like if you could even choose words that try to kind of capture that experience and this spirit of like wanting to use the different notes, like just how would you put words to that for us?
I get absorbed in it. Using notes outside of the regular scales feels blissful to me. And using scales in different ways than were traditionally used feels blissful to me. Like expressing myself rather than learning how to do it their way. Like, yeah, if I had grown up going to music school, I would have learned how to do it their way, which is beautiful too. There's a lot of beautiful musicians out there that are amazing, but I'm actually really happy in the way that I've learned it, learning on my own and coming up with ways that it sounds good to my ear, so it becomes self-expression, becomes more art for me. And as art, I can achieve my own samadhi, my own absorption in it. So it's that samadhi state, and so we look back at Buddhist Tantra and the ways that shamatha and vipassana, so basically concentration and insight, were always taught together all the way back from Shakyamuni Buddha. And so Dzogchen represents the insight, yet shamatha, the concentration piece, concentration giving birth to samadhi, well, it's usually taught as deities. And you have to have the permission of a Tibetan Lama to practice a certain deity. So this becomes a little inaccessible to most people. And what I love is the 84 Mahasiddhas is a tradition of 84 stories where these Mahasiddhas, the masters of Buddhist Tantra, learned in many different out-of-the-box sort of ways. So instead of just deities, well, there was one guy that played the lute. And the master came along and said, hey, can I give you some Buddhist practices? And the musician said, I'm not going to practice it unless it has to do with music, then I'll practice it. And so the teacher gave him a practice that was based on his lute. And he practiced for 12 years and reached Mahamudra, or the Buddhist tantric equivalent of enlightenment. So whatever we can use to be absorbed in, whatever stimulates our devotion, our bliss, our joy, and to be able to integrate joy with this practice, right, to achieve complete absorption. So the way I see it is that absorption, samadhi, is concentration plus joy.
All right, this is why I had him back, just to drop some knowledge on us, because you guys, I just gonna have to listen to this podcast a couple times to go back and get everything. That is just so beautiful. The bliss absolutely came through. And I also feel like you're speaking to kind of like my thesis statement. The sort of the point of this show is just that all of us are on the path to individuation, if we're using Jungian terms, or awakening. And the most beautiful thing that all of us can become is truly the own unique divine expression of ourselves that we are. And that is exactly what you're talking about, manifesting the sound coming through your instrument. That is it. That was so beautiful how you tied it together, looped us back, and just really drove this home.
Beautiful. And for everybody out there, whatever it is that you can cultivate your concentration with and also feel so much joy and even passion for, like that is it. You know, that's your samadhi, that's your practice. And how can we custom tailor these practices for ourselves?
I love that you brought this to this element of joy, because this has been so instrumental in my own healing. I feel like for so many years, I was just in therapy, kind of talking about all of the things that happened to me. This is what my parents did. I'm not saying it's not important to cover that stuff, but I was just like so stuck in kind of this victim mentality. And, I definitely had to sort of work through that. However, finding true joy, which is what led me to start this podcast, and what Rigdzin you're speaking to, is like, I can't even believe that I went so many years without it, I guess, without as much joy as I feel like I need. So it's so true what you're saying. Like, we need the light and the dark.
Mm-hmm. And all those dramatic stories that we were so attached to, when we're able to step outside those stories, then we realize they were never joyful. They were more pain related. And so this addiction to pain, right?
Yes.
How can we leave behind the pain?
Mm-hmm. Yes, leave behind the melodrama and get to the true joy, where all notes and all scales and all feelings, everything is welcome. I love
Woo-hoo!
that.
Yeah.
Well, this has truly been delightful. We did go over our allotted time. However, it's just too good to not have it be any other way. So in the spirit of not grasping or clinging or trying to force, I will say that this episode turned out perfectly, just the way it was supposed to be, the perfect length, with everything occurring right when it was supposed to. Thank you so much for being on Jazz Therapy today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on here. It was such a joy. So wonderful.
You guys, this is Rigdzin, our resident mystic. He will absolutely be back on the show. And his first episode in season 1 you can find as well. Leave us a comment. Let us know what really resonated with you from today, what was stimulating, what really touched you. We absolutely want to hear. May jazz therapy soothe your soul. Thank you for listening, reflecting, and being present with us today. Please leave us a review and comment. Jazz Therapy is edited and produced by Patricio Garcia. Sage Salmon is our social media coordinator. To connect with us, find us on Instagram and TikTok. Our email is info@jazztherapy.com. Check back next week for our next episode. May jazz therapy soothe your soul.